The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, and welcome to everyone joining this EGM on the GoToWebinar. It's a virtual EGM. I want to now formally call the meeting to order. There's one item of business on our agenda today, and that is the proposed resolution to dismiss 5 members of the Nominet board. Before we get to that business, I hope members will allow me a brief moment of reflection. As I made clear in my note to all our members yesterday, as someone who cares deeply about Nominet and its future, I find it sad that we've got to this point. I acknowledge that in the past we clearly haven't listened well enough to our members, but we have been listening. We've listened to Simon Blackler's campaign, and we've talked to so many members in the past few weeks, and we've taken on board what we've heard. We know that there are many things we need to do better. Yesterday, we announced that Russell HAWORTH is stepping down from the board and from his role as CEO. We're grateful for all that Russell's done, all his hard work driving growth and innovation. But we all recognize, as he did, that now a new direction will require new leadership. The board and I are committed to a program of change and to engaging with members to shape that process. I say all of this because I hope this EGM can be a starting point for a more collaborative climate and a better partnership between all members and the organisation. I hope that today's discussions can take place in that spirit. The board and I are going to listen. We'll answer any questions you have to the fullest extent that we can. In that spirit, I know there have been many questions about voting rights, and I want to provide clarity on that up front. The voting rights were taken on the 1st of February, the day before we received the formal EGM request. After the initial calculation, PDR's voting rights were accordingly set to 0. But I now want to put the emphasis on looking forward. As I said in my email yesterday, the outcome of the vote on one level really won't matter. Nominet will change. And the board and I are committed to delivering that change. But we need a breathing space, and we need stability to deliver. And I hope members will grant us that opportunity. With that in mind, let us proceed to the business for today. In fairness to everyone, we wanted to give equal time for short introductory remarks for and against the resolution, and we invited Simon Blackler to speak for a couple of minutes. We were then going to have James Bladell from our board reply. Simon this morning declined to do that, but if he has changed his mind and wants to speak, perhaps he can let us know, and we'll beam him in. Otherwise, we'll go straight to Q&A shortly. Questions for the Q&A session should be posted via the chat feature in GoToWebinar. There is no provision in our bylaws or the rules for members to question each other. And in the spirit of keeping the meeting as constructive as possible, we want to avoid direct debates between members. So the board will deal with questions submitted in advance first, then questions submitted in writing via GoToWebinar. If there's any time remaining, we'll open the floor to questions asked verbally. We will conclude discussions at around 3:40 to allow members who have not already done so a further 20 minutes to cast their vote. Voting is now open via the Civica platform for any member who has not voted in advance. You should have received the credentials from Civica via email previously. Look for an email from takepart@cesvotes.com. If you don't have this, please email egm@nominet.uk straight away. Voting remains open till about 4 p.m. Once voting closes, Civica will require about 2 hours to count and report the results. Therefore, we will adjourn the EGM and end the virtual session when the voting closes. The results will be reported via Nominet's Twitter and website later today and will be emailed to members. With that, let us turn our attention to our sole order of business, the proposed resolution, which reads as follows. That the following persons be removed from their respective offices as directors of the company with immediate effect, pursuant to section 168.1 of the Act. A. Eleanor Hester Bradley, B. Russell Adam HAWORTH, C. Benjamin Edwin Hill, D. Jane Elizabeth TOZER, and E. Mark William Wood. Now, I just want to see again if Simon wants to say anything in favour of the resolution. Have we had any indication from Simon? No? Okay. In that case, if Simon doesn't want to take up a speaking slot, we'll also skip James's response, and we'll extend the Q&A by 5 minutes. For members who are interested in James's comments and views, he's very well known in the industry. We've published his video on the Nominet website. Thank you very much for all the questions. We've had many questions submitted in advance, and I'm going to ask Elaine Quinn here to read out the questions, and she will ask various members of the board. We've discussed on the pre-selected questions, on the early questions, we'll ask members of the board to reply, and Elaine will hand straight to them. So Elaine, please.
Okay, first question, you may have touched on this, Mark, from Dinesh. Which date did the directors authorise the register of members to close under clause 2.1 of the voting rights bylaw for this EGM? And related to that, can you confirm that the following 2 members are still both voting members of the company? PDR, Public Domain Registry, and Register.com.
Well, as I said, I can confirm it was February the 1st, but I'm going to ask Ben Hill, our CFO, to say a few more words in detailed response.
Sure, thank you, Mark. As Mark said, the voting rights were determined at the 1st of February. At that point, there were 2 members that were in existence. Obviously, time then has moved on since the 1st of February, and there has been an acquisition and a consolidation into a group. And the voting bylaws are clear that if there is eventually only 1 member, then you cannot have 2 members' votes. And therefore, although there are 2 members at the point of the 1st of February, when the votes are actually cast, then there will only be 1 member vote, and therefore the PDR votes have been set to 0 without impacting any other people's votes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to make clear, we have all members of the Nominet board available for these responses, so and we'll introduce them as we go. Elaine, please.
Okay, next question is from Rex. Why have you predicted chaos and instability when change of leadership is perfectly normal? Do you think everyone's essential to the stability of Nominet? Maybe James?
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I take that question. The short answer is yes. The executive team and a fully staffed board are vital to the operational stability and the governance of the organization and its ability to make strategic decisions. So Nominet is a membership organization, but the board and the executives are responsible to a wide variety of stakeholders, including commercial partners, government, Nominet employees, and of course, all of the millions of .uk registrants who have trusted in the .uk extension. So I think that the phrasing of the question is such that that we believe it's our position that if the motion is adopted, that Nominet will be operating in a degraded mode until the vacancies listed in the motion are filled, and that will delay progress on any of the reforms, whether that's the campaign or whether that's the board's 7-point plan. But those efforts will be delayed possibly for several months, and that's one of the reasons why I believe the fastest path to progress is through the existing board and executive team. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Okay, next one is from Edward Dorr. Whatever happens today, the extensive campaign by the Nominet board against the EGM resolution has been very divisive. What is the board's plan to heal rifts with the membership and restore members' trust in the board and their management of Nominet going forwards? Specifically, will this include meaningful, substantive, two-way public dialogue with members? And if so, what is the plan to achieve this? Will the new forum be part of this plan? Ask maybe Rob to come in on that.
Yeah, super. Thank you. And thanks for the question. There's a lot in there. So let me try and make sure that I cover all of the points that were raised. A very fair and legitimate question. And I agree. I think it's important to say at the outset, I think it's really critical that we work together to find some common ground. It's clear to the board that we need to take some time to absorb all of the feedback that we've heard during the course of the campaign and to really understand the feedback from all of our members and where that common ground is. From our perspective, we as a board will continue to push on the 7-point plan that we've laid out. That was something that we communicated obviously several weeks ago, is an important part of what we're trying to do. The advisory council will form one important part of that plan and one important avenue of engagement for us. But we believe it's going to be really important that we continue an open dialogue, that we have really strong engagement, and hear all of the respective points of views across all of our stakeholder base in terms of what we need to do moving forward. So we will continue to look at other ways to engage members and make sure that there's a meaningful two-way dialogue, as was phrased in the question. We'll do that for members, and we'll do that for all of our stakeholders. And the forum for sure would be part of that plan. Hopefully that helps, and happy to deal with any other follow-up as needed in the verbal questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next question is from Hester. The resolution was meant to be coupled with a second resolution, which you blocked because you said members could not elect any more members. But the second resolution didn't even mention elect. It said appoint, expressing a desired outcome, which could then have been done by directors in accordance with the articles. Should members not have a right to pass a resolution expressing their wishes, and you are to blame if blocking the second resolution leads to the very vacuum and instability you have talked about? Maybe ask James to come in on that.
Hi, thanks. So I think I will probably defer to Rory and some of the others who can probably answer some of the particulars of the bylaws. But I think the short answer is that we have established processes for evaluating candidates for the board, whether they're appointed NEDs or even for the recruitment and retention of executives, and that those processes will be followed. And of course, the individuals that were proposed by the campaign would be considered for any vacancies and consulted as a part of that process.
Thank you.
Okay. Next one, question from Matt. If the EGM motion passes, what is the likelihood of government stepping in and taking control of .uk? And if so, what's the likelihood of a price rise? Mark, or maybe Stephen?
Stephen would be good for that. Yeah.
Sorry, you caught me unawares. So this is about the UK government stepping in. So let me have a word on this. So, you know, it's a very important question. And the short answer is there is a possibility of government action, but we can't answer. You know, we can't provide a definitive answer on how government intentions might pan out and how they might evolve in response to events. Let me set the scene first to help explain this a bit. Nominet is at the heart of digital Britain, the heart of the lives of millions of people. And as we all know, the UK's view, the government view, is that we are becoming a digital first country. Stability, continuity of the infrastructure are now recognised as a national security issue. And the government is therefore a key stakeholder for Nominet, given the critical services that Nominet provides. The UK government has a very clear mission to make the UK the best place to do business in the digital space. And I would say their requirements are far, far tougher than they were in the early days of Nominet. They're rightly concerned about stability. They do have some levers. They have the Digital Economy Act, and they have some other legislation in progress if they feel sufficiently concerned to act. When might they act? They would act if they felt public services are at heightened risk. They'd act if they felt that the services we provide to government are at risk. Remember, we provide a security umbrella for 3.8 million, I think, 1.8 million government employees. It's a key part of Nominet's public benefit program, but it's also critical infrastructure for 750 government departments, including the NHS. So the DNS side, obviously, but also some of these other services are matters of great importance to our government contacts. They might ask Nominet to make some changes to our model to reduce risks of disruption or indeed foreign capture. They might want to strengthen governance. They might want to bring us under a tighter regulatory inspection regime. As a first step, they might classify us formally as critical national infrastructure, which brings a range of additional pressures that are faced by the telcos and others. Once we head down that road, there will be consequences, and we aren't able to say how that will affect operations or pricing. It won't be simple, but I'm afraid we can't. We're ready for that journey, but we can't predict what lies ahead.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Next question from Andrew. What was the reason the RAC terms were in development before this EGM? So why was the RAC underway before the EGM? Are you planning to create a supervisory board like at DNIC? Do you intend to eventually replace elected non-executive directors with the RAC? Are there plans to remove elected NEDs from the main board? Quite a lot in there. I'm going to throw that to Ellie, I think.
Thanks, Elaine. Yeah, quite a few things to cover off there. The first thing to say, actually, is the reason that the Registry Advisory Council was in development and the thinking was in development there ahead of the EGM was exactly because we recognised there was more we needed to do in order to find the right channels for engaging with a range of members. We know we have our engagement activities, we have things like formal consultation processes, but we wanted to find another more structured way to get input on things like price and policy and some of the really important things that matter to all of us that are involved in the registry business. We came up with a draft set of terms of reference, and the idea with that was to get some feedback. We've had that, and we've now set up the Registry Advisory Council Design Group, where we've asked a group of members who gave us that feedback to really take the development and the design forward. We want to get it in place really soon. And it's actually there very much to provide another means of getting feedback into the company, absolutely the opposite of trying to sort of shut that down or find ways to have less representation. There's certainly no discussion about not having elected non-executive directors on the board. This is a very different tool and one where we want to have a really good way of getting that structured feedback. With the Registry Advisory Council Design Group, one of the things to say is we've got a good range of people engaged in that. All of them gave us feedback. Not all of them agree with Nominet. Some of them are in support of the motion today. So it was important as well that we have people who would really give us their kind of critical thinking and help us develop something that will be really robust and will be a really good mechanism going forward for that feedback and really thinking about how we work as an organisation.
Thanks, Hilly. Next question sounds like one for one of the non-conflicted directors. Looking to the future from today, what have the board decided to do if the result is in favour of the no vote, i.e. resolution 1 fails to pass? And on the flip side, what has the board decided to do if the result is in favour of the yes vote, i.e. if resolution 1 passes? Questions from Dinesh and maybe one for Rob.
Yes, thanks, Elaine. So in short, I think there's not a lot of difference between the two paths. So let me explain a little bit further. As we said, we will push on with the 7-point plan that we've already announced. That's a commitment that we made to members previously, and it's a commitment that the board is 100% behind and will continue to make that happen. However, it's a step, and we recognize that there's more work that needs to be done. You heard in Mark's remarks earlier on about the importance of us listening and absorbing all of the things that we have heard during the course of the campaign. And I mentioned it indeed in the previous question. I think it's going to be really important that we build back trust between the company and the membership. It's really important that we listen to each other. We understand that common ground, that common context that we talked about earlier. And we take a perspective that incorporates the views of all of our stakeholders, not just the members, but all of the stakeholders, the customers, employees, government, everybody that's associated with the business. So as a board, we will lay out a process that will really drive that engagement, make sure that we get that feedback, make sure that we continue that dialogue that today is all about. And those are all actions that we will take regardless of the outcome, right? So I think we're committed to that path regardless of the outcome. The main difference between the two outcomes really is that if the motion passes, the board's going to have an immediate focus on stability, and obviously, replacing the things that need to happen in terms of board governance moving forward. We're going to have to look at that. So the immediate focus is going to be on stability. But in terms of engagement, communication, and many of the other things that we talked about, the two paths are going to be very similar.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. Next question is on remuneration. It's probably one for Mark and Jane. As a not-for-profit company with a guaranteed recurring and increasing income, Nominet is unlike any other company in that it has no need to diversify or generate additional income sources. What concrete actions have created sufficient value to the company in order to justify inflation-busting salary increases from $1 million per annum to 1.7 million per annum in just a few years? And that's a question from Thomas.
Yeah, okay, I'll do the first part of that. We're a company limited by guarantee, which means we cannot distribute profits to members. We're not a not-for-profit business. We're something slightly different. The strategy adopted by the board some years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, was to maintain focus on running a responsible registry while looking for new income streams. And that was out of concern that the registry might decline over time, and therefore revenues might decline, but costs would be likely to go up, which they of course do. So there was an assumption there was no guaranteed revenue stream in the longer term, and therefore we should look at other options. And that's why there was diversification. As a result, revenues have grown, and the company has established a significant revenue stream with its cyber contracts. And it's one RSP business, and at the same time continue to run a responsible and trusted registry. So those were the reasons for taking a path to broaden the business mix. But we are now looking at how we manage the business going forward, and that'll be part of our discussion. But let me hand over to Jane Tozer, who's chair of our Remuneration Committee, to answer on pay. Jane, please.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for the question. We've taken on board your concerns about executive pay, and we take them very seriously. We've announced already a freeze on board pay for the next 2 years and have committed to reviewing our benchmarking. To the specific question, our executive team has significantly outperformed against very challenging targets every year for the last few years. That's not always the case. There have been some base salary increases, but more to the point, increased annual bonuses, which are performance driven, and these can be highly variable from year to year. Also, 3 years ago, we introduced a long-term incentive package, which is a standard part of the packages for senior executives in technology companies such as ours. Without it, our packages are out of step with the market. Note that this long-term incentive scheme hasn't yet paid out anything to anyone. The majority of the increase that you highlight is accounting accruals for possible future payments on the LTI scheme over the next 3 years. And these aren't driven by the accruals, they are based on the company's 3-year performance record at the time of any payment. Finally, I'd just like to reassure you that the Remuneration Committee benchmarks Nominet rewards against UK-based technology companies of similar size to us, not US and not FTSE 100 companies. But we have taken on board your concerns about executive pay, and we do take them very seriously for review going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Next question. How much money from the .uk namespace has Nominet spent in cross-subsidising non.uk registries? Why does Nominet use funds from the .uk to subsidise competing TLDs? Isn't cross-subsidising competitors against the interest of the .uk TLD? Ellie, one for you.
Thanks, Elaine. So talking about our RSP business, so where we're providing back-end infrastructure services to other registries. That's something that we've developed over the last few years, and we now run a number of other top-level domains, whether they're .brands or generic top-level domains. What we do, though, is we do those on a commercial basis. We do those with a healthy margin. We do not cross-subsidise those from our .uk registry business. We absolutely build on the expertise that we have, but not from a financial perspective. It is, though, a highly competitive market, and I have to say we have been unsuccessful in a number of bids because of the price point that we would go in at, because we want to make sure that all of those contracts absolutely wash their face and provide a sufficient margin for us. So we're not cross-subsidising those from the .uk business.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next one is from Simon. I think this is one for one of the elected directors, actually. One of the underlying themes of the public benefit campaign is the lack of, or perceived lack of, interaction between the Nominet board and the wide and diverse group of members. The RAC is being proposed as a solution to this, but seem more like a steering group than a way for the wider membership to interact with Nominet and its board. Would Nominet consider other opportunities for direct interaction with members, for example, regular members meeting, such as those that work well with other industry membership organisations like Links? So I'm thinking sort of Anne or David or both for that one.
Hello. I'll hop in first if that's okay. It's a good question, and I think the short answer is yes, absolutely. As a board, we really do want to explore all ways of engaging. The advisory council is just one of them, and we don't want it to just be a steering group. Hopefully, whatever the outcome of today, we'll see through further ways of increasing and improving engagement, and we need to do that in collaboration with members. One of those would be, or was, the forum, and just a note on that. Yeah, it was a bad move to close the forum in the way it was, especially before there were suitable replacements set up. And I really do appreciate the frustrations members had with that. But going back to the question, would we consider other opportunities? Yes, absolutely. I think there's a lot that we can do together collaboratively to improve engagement and make it something really meaningful moving forwards. I don't know if you want to add anything, David?
Hello, hope you can hear me. Just to add, I kind of agree that the forum, the way it was closed in hindsight, was probably a little sort of inflammatory. But I did think that the place did need a refresh, and I hope that what we can produce in the future will be far better than what we had, and perhaps with some better content as well. Obviously, we've also tried the video call aspect and the Zoom and having conferences with people, and I like the idea that we get people out from behind the keyboard and we have people talking face to face, because I think it's a lot faster and a lot more efficient sometimes. Obviously, it depends on how busy people are. And hopefully in the future we can have more member events as well, where we meet up and actually get to know people face to face. I appreciate some people find that difficult due to location, and maybe we can work on that with them. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Next one, questions from Lee. Would it be a reasonable policy to pay a reduced annual fee if you hold both the .uk and the .co.uk domains as a pair? This may help reduce drop rates for .uk and help towards costs for domain owners who have been forced to, in effect, pay double. If domains are split and held separately by different owners, normal fees apply. Ellie, one for you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that is absolutely possible. We'd need to think about the policy and how that would work. I think it's just the sort of question that the Registry Advisory Council could look at and bring in different perspectives and consider. So maybe that's one of the things we could add to the agenda for the RAC.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Carl. Maybe one for Mark. Why is it taking the board so long to realise the members were not happy about the running of Nominet?
You know, we have we've got a very good member engagement program, and we talk to members. I've talked to hundreds of members since I've been chair over the last 4 years, but we failed to pick up a whole undercurrent of discontent. And that was a failure on our part, and we've now tapped into it. And I've spent a lot of time over the last few weeks talking to an awful lot of members and picking up their views and their concerns and their and their suggestions about how Nominet should focus. I mean, I just think this has been a very unusual process, but a great opportunity. We missed some signals before. I think we've got them now, and I think we have a clearer picture about how the whole membership thinks, and we'll act on it. And I'll give credit there. I mean, I talked to Simon Blackwood this morning, and as I said to him then, he's run a very good campaign, and he's raised a lot of issues, and our own contacts have reinforced the concerns around some of those issues. But we have started we were already going down the road of addressing the issues that have been raised, and we want to accelerate it. That's the next challenge. We just want to go faster.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Next question from Ben. Can we please ask Nominet to seek to re-engage with members, perhaps picking up from some previous exercise which involved, for example, a series of consultative lunches, which I've had. These were invaluable for informal feedback. So membership engagement question, maybe Ellie?
Thank you. Yes, I've been to lots of those member lunches over the years, and I think all the time we are trying to find new ways to meet with and engage with members. It's been hard this year, let's be honest. The team have run some fantastic virtual events. We've tried really hard as well to extend what we do. So, for example, the marketing masterclasses and the resources that we've been adding to the UK domain for members and registrars around the marketing side. But I think one of the hardest things to replicate in the current environment has been the networking opportunities, which I know have been really popular for those members that have engaged. And so hopefully, as things start to return to more normal times, we can think about going back to some of those opportunities to have those face-to-face discussions, to have opportunities to network, both Nominet with members, but also members themselves. I think that there's a huge amount of value in that. I think we've also flagged in various answers today as well that sense of how important it is to be listening going forwards, and that we're going to need to find new ways of hearing feedback. Yes, the Registry Advisory Council is one of those. Yes, the member engagement programs will also present those opportunities, but we really are going to need to find more opportunities to hear from members and make sure that the real breadth of views and perspectives are being fed in all the time.
Okay, thanks, Ellie. Next question from Susanna. We're only hearing one side of the argument. Why couldn't we hear Simon Blackler answer questions to make the process here impartial? Mark, maybe you want to.
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah.
It's a regular company meeting, and that is the way company meetings are run. It isn't a debate. We did, as said, we did invite Simon to speak at the beginning of this for 2 or 3 minutes. He declined, which is fine, but I think it's not a matter of having a debate and having both sides. This is a company EGM, and the board at such events is responsible for speaking on behalf of the company. These are questions to the company. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Imran. Do the board feel the current makeup of the board has silenced dissent and diversity of opinion from individuals on the board regarding the issues brought to the fore by this vote? Or has the whole board been complicit in sidelining members' concerns? So I'll read it again. Do the board feel the current makeup of the board has silenced dissent and diversity of opinion from individuals on the board regarding the issues brought to the fore by this vote, or has the whole board been complicit in sidelining members' concerns? I'm going to suggest that's maybe one for one of the member-elected directors, I think. So James or Anne or David or Phil.
So I'll take a first stab at that question, if it's all right. I don't think that there's anything structurally in the nature of the structure of the board that silences dissent or sidelines particular directors. I think, and I think there's a undercurrent of perhaps mistrust or something in the phrasing of the question. I don't know if it's intentional or just inadvertent. But I do want to say that it's possible that a lack of transparency on the board and how we reach our decisions looks externally as and perceived externally as that dissent is silence, when in fact we have very vigorous debates in our board meeting on a number of issues. I mean, just in the last 7 weeks, I think we've had very spirited debates. But we always, through various discussions and debates, arrive at a shared consensus position, and that's what we take, I think, externally, and that may be why there's a perception that the dissent is silenced. But I don't think that's the case, and I certainly don't feel it's anything about the composition of the board or who's on it or anything structural about how the different seats are filled. I hope that helps answer the question. I understand it's a complicated issue, and I may have misunderstood what you were getting at.
Thanks, James. Next question is from Tim, and this is about Russell's departure. The statement by Russell at the weekend that he intends to stand down, has he done so? Can he still give handover advice after standing down? So I think a question about Russell's status in the organisation. Mark, can you confirm?
Yeah, Russell stood down from the board yesterday. There are still quite a few details to be worked out with him about his formal departure, and those will be going on in confidence in the coming days. I think that's all we can say at the moment.
Okay, thank you. All right, a question from Dan. Nominet has already stated that they are considered CNI. So what did Stephen Page mean when he said they could do that? Okay, so yeah, Dan's responding to what Stephen's comments earlier. Stephen, can you come in?
I guess that's one for me, isn't it? Look, without going into all the technicalities, let me have a go. We are critical to society, and we behave that way. So Nominet's team has got super technical skills. It strives to deliver non-stop service at the highest levels of quality that can be afforded by Nominet. The infrastructure handled 300 billion transactions in December, which is pretty scary, without stuttering just for a second. So Nominet behaves as though it is CNI, critical national infrastructure, but there's also a formal process in the UK's national security machinery, and so far we have been treated as though we were CNI when it helps, but not formally designated as such. That means we do keep closely in touch with government, we participate in some of their technical testing processes and so on, but we haven't got the kind of close regulatory scrutiny or maybe the cost burden which would come if we were formally designated. We're ready for this. The executive team is currently modelling the impact of CNI designation, because it has been brought up several times during this campaign by our government contacts in 2 different departments. In simple terms, CNI designation would be a first step in leaning closer into Nominet to ensure that risks of stability are minimised. It would, as more legislation and regulations come on stream, that would mean some tougher security requirements for us, some restructuring, more technical investment. You know, as we work forward beyond the EGM, this question will be on the table for us to think through. We'll work carefully with government. We'll respond to what they ask of us. Earlier on, someone asked about the costs. You know, this could push up our costs. I don't think we know. It depends on which bit of the regulatory system takes us on and how much they and how intrusive they want to be, which of course is the government's choice, not ours. We have prepared for a risk of cost increases, but at the moment in our current business model, it's most probably that could just be absorbed by our broader business model without any impact on pricing. That would clearly be our hope, strongly be our hope. And as we work towards a simpler Nominet along the lines others have talked about today, we would have to look closely at where this fits.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next question is from Vincent. You refer to the board and the executive being critical to stability. Nominet will surely have a contingency for such an event. So what plan is there should any event happen for whatever reason where the core leadership becomes unable to perform these duties? Is it a known risk and one that is planned for? And would you mitigate this risk you've told us exists should the resolution pass? That might be one for Rob, maybe?
Yeah.
Thanks, Elaine. So in terms of the, there's a lot to unpack in the question. So let me try and take a crack. And if I don't cover everything, just somebody keep me straight here. So do we have a contingency plan? Absolutely. As you would expect, the executive has got a contingency plan. It's really important that we maintain continuity of service, continuity of operations. And so the team have got that plan in place. Now, clearly, you know, the motion is to remove various members of the board. These are fairly significant changes. It would be necessary for us to think about how we address those changes, how we maintain robust governance in terms of the way that the board functions and oversees the activities of the executive. Obviously, in the circumstances with Russell's departure announced yesterday, we will be looking to put in place some measures to maintain the operational stability on a day-to-day basis of how the business is run, what we need to do to make sure that that continuity exists. And we will look at doing that, and we will certainly share that with members as we go through the course of the coming days and weeks. And we'll be looking to execute the various elements of a contingency plan that the team have got in place to ensure that we continue to provide a good and robust service, and we maintain the integrity of the service that we provided throughout the campaign and you know, over many years. So yes, there's a plan in place in short, and we will be looking to action the various elements of that over the course of the coming days and weeks, and we'll certainly be sharing that with members as we make those changes, and we'll continue to be very communicative around it. I would just add, you know, in any scenario, you know, the comments that I made earlier about us pushing ahead with the 7-point plan, us continuing to reach out, engage, have a two-way dialogue, really understand the concerns, all of those things continue and will continue regardless of any contingency plan that is put in place or otherwise, right? I mean, the board and the company are committed to those steps, and we will continue on those steps. In the meantime, we'll work on the things that we need to put in place to address the changes that may or may not result out today.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Okay, we're nearly out of time, so I'm just going to squeeze another question in if I can. This is from Paul. Why do you think this motion has been brought to remove the directors? Do you think more can be done for the members as well as the charitable work? Mark?
Yeah, I think the members of the board have already responded in many ways to this. We're all committed to better member engagement, and I think as part of the plans that Ellie's outlined around the Registry Advisory Council and the new member hub and so on, and new design for forum, we're trying to find new channels. It's become clear to me that we need to really radically improve member engagement and find ways to bring in ideas about what else we can be doing to help the members. And I think we're putting the framework for that in place very quickly, and it will change the way we engage with members. On public benefit, we've already committed to increasing our spending. I think it's one of the things I can tell you, at every board meeting we discuss public benefit. I know few other businesses that are so committed culturally and financially to good causes. And we've all been very proud of the programs that have been carried out in the last couple of years, because they've really affected a lot of people. And we've had charities thanking us profusely for the way we've helped them with technology solutions. So we have a framework now that we can build on and invest more in those programs. And I think we can look at how we become even more ambitious as time moves on. But it's deeply ingrained in the company culture.
Okay, thanks. I think James just wanted to come in on that point as well. James, you got something you can add?
Yes, thank you. I did want to add on Mark's comments. I do think that the motion in my view, represents a failure of engagement, both a failure perhaps on the board to hear some of the discontent of membership, and a recognition that some of our engagement efforts, like the various seminars and events, were poorly attended and therefore probably didn't capture the fullness of the member concern. What I do hope, however, is that all of these efforts, including the Registry Advisory Council and the new engagement efforts, really help to reset the relationship between Nominet, the company, the board, and the membership going forward. However this vote turns out, I think there's a lot of work to do in front of us, for all of us. And we all have to kind of, I think, extend our hands a little bit and maybe even let go of some decades-long disputes or disagreements, and really focus on the future of Nominet, and whether that's driven by the passage of this motion, or if the motion is rejected. It doesn't matter. I think that the work is to start to rebuild a relationship that's based on trust, engagement, and professionalism. I think that's been lacking, and I think that's what brought us to this point. And I think that's a callback to Mark's opening comments. Thanks.
Thanks, James. Just one point of clarification before we wrap up, because I realise I've let this run too far over. Just a point of clarification: has Russell had his resignation accepted by the board? I think the question is that what assurance or clarity can the board provide that this isn't a tactic applied for the EGM?
Oh, I see. No, yes, his resignation has been accepted by the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to make that
Definitely.
clear, because
Yes.
I think maybe it wasn't clear the first pass. Okay. I think we're well over time, which is my fault, so apologies. Back to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you. Yes, well, voting will now close at 4:15, so we've extended that a bit. Thank you for the great questions, and thanks for so many members joining us today. I wanted to mention that through the number of proxy votes already cast and the proxy voters designated and the attendees today, we will have by far the largest turnout for any questions in Nominet's history. And I'm grateful that our members have been so engaged with this issue. If I may, I just want to offer a few brief closing thoughts and build a little bit on what James just said. To start, I want to thank all members for the constructive and thoughtful tone that we have seen for the most part over the last few weeks. The board, management, and I have tried to contribute to the debate substantively and in detail with proposals that we believe address the concerns that members have raised. We appreciate that there are difficult and in some cases fundamental questions at stake here. But whatever the outcome of the vote today, there's common ground to build from in the coming weeks. As the whole board has said on this call, Nominet will change as a result of this campaign and this EGM. From my perspective, and I think from all our perspectives, that change will be considerably easier to implement without the disruption that today's proposed resolution will cause. I accept that we need to do a better job of listening to our members and engaging constructively with you. We want a new partnership, and we've started to build that. The Registry Advisory Council is a critical first step. As one or two of my colleagues have said, if we had our time over again, we would not have closed the member forum in the way we did. That was a mistake. Regardless of that, we're now going to find new and better ways for constructive dialogue in the weeks and months to come. We mustn't forget, however, it's not just membership that we have to think about. We also have other stakeholders, including customers, many charities, and government, and we need to bring them all into the dialogue for change, and we will do so. Let me repeat that we're committed to changing Nominet, but if the EGM resolution does succeed, it will undermine the ability of the board and the management to lead that change quickly. We want stability, and we want a chance to build bridges and bring all members into a new partnership. And that's a point I made to Simon today. I hope the outcome of the vote today will give us that time. All of us are agreed that Nominet is an unusual organisation which delivers brilliant service and has a special role to play in our society. Nominet does a very important job, and it does it very well. I know we all hope it will continue to do so long into the future. That is now the close of the formal part of the EGM. I will shortly adjourn the meeting, so members who've not yet cast their votes can do so. Voting will remain open till 4:15 p.m. We'll leave the webinar open until the voting closes, and we'll announce the results this evening when the count is complete. Many thanks to all of you for attending, and I hope you'll all continue to work with the board, the company leadership and the staff as we plot a new course for Nominet in the weeks and months to come. Thank you very much.